Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mile High Champions League Week 4 review, Week 5 preview. This is your commissioner. If you're hearing me, you're going to hear Noel. How you doing, big guy?
Oh, it's unlike, usually when we record, it's Tuesday. It's Thursday now, so it's almost Friday. So I've got few complaints. How about yourself?
Oh, yeah, me too. And to that point, let's talk about that. As we said in other podcasts, we normally record this on Tuesday. We do the editing and such on Wednesday, release it on Thursday. But I was out of town until yesterday, so we are recording tonight, Thursday, alluded to in that email that I sent out. It's it's going to be fun because instead of previewing on our silly and often incorrect prognostications, we're actually going to be talking about live games going on right now. So it's definitely going to be a change of pace, definitely going to be some fun. So let's go. Kings in the North, congratulations, Ben, MVT of the week. That was it was a bittersweet thing because I enjoyed watching your team just go off. Unfortunately, it was on me. So congratulations, 168 points. That's a hell of a score. I mean, you would have. I mean, everybody. It was just wow. What a week, 168. You're going to beat pretty much anybody, any point in history of the Mile High Champions League with that kind of score. So congratulations, Ben. Funny enough, he did not have the MVP, although. Le'Veon Bell got him 52 points, which is obviously awesome. Todd Gurley got 53 for Josh, who was able to beat the Spartans, which we got to talk about, Noel, 0-4 in the review. But holy cow, 53 points for Todd Gurley. What a week. 23 attempts, 121 yards. I mean, it was just – this guy is back. I mean, last year it seemed like he was going to just fall off. Maybe he was going to be like Balloon Boy. What's his name? Trent Richardson. And
He's
just
back
fall
in the
off the face of the
CFL.
earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just go and play for some stupid Canadian team. But no,
The Rough Riders.
That sounds dangerous and edgy and not fun. So he's good. Todd Gurley. I mean, 121. This is where he's deadly. 121 yards on the ground is obviously great, but he got 7 reception, 94 yards, 1 touchdown, and that was 7 receptions on 8 targets. So he's got good hands. So he's like Allstate. He's mobile Allstate. So that was Todd. Congratulations, Josh, on that, because not only did you get MVP award, Todd, we'll say it without him. That is from Wedding Crashers.
Wedding
If you haven't
Crashers.
seen it, where the hell have you been? And then let's go into the fantasy news. We're going to shift things up because Noel and I, we like to do that. We're going to do a couple things. I'm going to do fantasy news or kind of opinion pieces to kind of get the fantasy juices flowing. We're going to change Noel's news because we often talk about overlapping things. But what Noel's going to talk about, as he's done well in the past, is something I would like to call Noel's Medical Minute. And it's going to be all the players of relevance. We're not going to talk about like kickers that pulled a testicle or something like that. All of the relevant fantasy sorry for those of you who have those and that put a little cringe on your face. We're going to talk about injuries. So let's first get into the fantasy news opinion piece. I just have a question, Noel. I know you know. I had to look it up, but who is Kareem Hunt and where did he come from? Because this dude, number 1 overall running back, he's averaging 46 points a week. That is elite quarterback territory, but he's doing it as a running back. So he has 187 points through 4 weeks, averaging 46.8. Last week he got 30. I mean, this dude is tremendous. Who is Kareem Hunt? Where did he come from?
I don't know much because I don't watch, be honest with you listeners here, I don't watch really any college football, which if you want me to explain later, you can email me. I'll give you the long explanation. But I know he went to Toledo, and not only did he enter the season this year as the backup, but there was thought he might even be the 3rd running back on the Chiefs list. You can say this is Andy Reid being Andy Reid, which some of it is that. You can say it's Andy Reid has also done a great job of coaching an offensive line and play calling. But, I mean, it's one of those things where you watch him. He's not very tall, but he is big. He's got big, strong legs, and he's shifty. He's fast. He apparently only fumbled once during his whole college career. So in a way, it's for those of you that remember the first, I think maybe the only year it was relevant was maybe the first year of our fantasy league, where Brian Westbrook was like this kind of just fantasy magic in a bottle. And this is before PPR. So imagine with PPR, Kareem Hunt is Brian Westbrook with more speed, more power. And now since we have PPR, just fantasy gold. Other than that, I don't know much about him.
Yeah, I kind of wish I. Well, I mean, I'm gonna actually look him up. What did Vanessa? Vanessa has him, by the way, for those. Oh, $13.
Yep,
that is the best value pick I think we might have in the Mile High Champions League. I don't keep track of. That's not a record I keep track of, but you can probably safely assume historically that is a fantastic pick over time. It's like buying Apple at $4 a share. So when you said you don't know much about Kareem Hunt, Noel, it put that song into my mind by you know what I'm talking about. Don't know much.
Yep. Don't know much about me, but
oh no, I'm talking about the other one. Where he's like, but I know how to love you. That may be all I need to know. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I'm not sure I do.
Aaron Neville. That's who I was thinking about. Aaron Neville. For those of you who endured my singing right there, go look up Aaron Neville. He's a fantastic singer from many decades ago. At first, I was like, "Oh, his name. It's Aaron Burr." Definitely not him. Definitely not Aaron Burr, former Vice President of the United States. Okay.
Fun fact, real quick before we move on. I actually had a college class where the teacher was having everyone go around the class and say fun fact about themselves. And one student said, "I'm a distant relative of Aaron Burr." And then someone else came across and said, "Well, I'm a distant relative of Alexander Hamilton."
Uh-oh.
It was political science class. Everyone laughed. So but it's just kind of like, interesting.
Fight.
That's where my fun fact was I can play two saxophones simultaneously. But, theirs is better.
That is, both are awesome. I would have liked to have seen that exchange, and you play two saxophones. Maybe put that up on YouTube, and we'll post it on the webpage. But, okay, we're way off topic. Let's get back to, Noel, your medical minute. Who was hurt this week? Who's fantasy relevant that went down?
Okay, not to gripe about anything like that, but two players on my team went down with basic season-ending injuries. I think the only person other than me that might care about at least one of them is going to be Courtney with Dalvin Cook shredding his ACL, also losing a fumble, which may have cost them the game for the Vikings. So he's gone. Look for potentially Latavius Murray to now be the feature back in Minnesota. From there, Derek Carr is out 2 to 8 weeks with a back injury, which is the same one that got our friend Tony Romo's kind of descent into injury hell started with I don't know if it's a fracture, but it's an issue with one of his vertebrae. And so, yeah, no one really knows until he's back. EJ Manuel will be the starting quarterback for the Raiders. So have fun with that, Crabtree and whatever the hell the other guy's name is, Stonehand's name is. And then another quarterback around the same age, I guess a year younger, is Marcus Mariota, or St. Marriott, something, who is listed as day-to-day, but Hilton, Doubletree in. Sorry. Mike, the Titans signed a backup quarterback this week. Can you guess who it was?
Oh, no. Oh, God. Who was it?
Well, can you guess who their backup already was, who's now going to start this next game?
Oh, God. No.
So they already had Matt Wassel on the roster, and then they decided to go with another youth movement kind of person and go with what's his 5th year in the league with 33-year-old Brandon Weeden signed to the active roster. And don't you worry, people who've been watching anything on NFL, they didn't even talk to Colin Kaepernick. So enjoy your quarterback situation there, Titans. It doesn't really matter because the game's probably almost over right now. Gronk was a game time decision and is out and will not be able to get his 70th touchdown. So he's still 69. But from there, I can't really think of anybody else with really super fantasy relevance who got hurt, other than for Larson, if he still has him. Andrew Luck practiced for the first time this season this week and has vowed that he will play sometime this season. So that's good news,
I suppose. Sure, let's go with good. Jacoby Brissett didn't look horrible last week. He just still looked like Jacoby Brissett, but not horrible.
They may have done better in that first game if they started Brissett over Tolzien, who threw, I believe, 2 pick sixes in the first half. So who the hell knows?
Like very first throw was a pick six. I was like, oh, God damn it. Because whoever I was playing week 1 had the defense that he threw it to. I was like, well, that's it. That was the Rams. So, okay. Thank you, Noel, for your medical minute. More like a couple minutes, but that's okay. We covered important things here. I'm going to put medical minutes. There we go. Who is your shithead of the week, Noel?
So this one, I was going to give a runner-up and then a real shithead of the week, but I think they deserve kind of somewhat equal standing. So let's call it not even runner-up, 1A and 1B. So 1B, this probably isn't a surprise. Any of you, at least I hope it doesn't, is going to be Mr. Cameron Newton, who made what he called joke in a press conference this week, where he said he was surprised that a woman reporter was asking him about route combinations or which routes are run by wide receivers. And when the reporter reportedly went to him afterwards and asked, hey, do you know who I am? Do you want to apologize for that? Do you want to give you clarification? He just doubled down on his joke. Well, tonight he offered up an apology, sort of, where he said he has 2 daughters. He apologized, basically making it sound like his brand had been hurt. And then he went kind of in a condescending direction where he smirked at the camera and mentioned super moms, or people who had been offended by him. But 1A this week is going to go to Los Angeles Chargers owner Dean Spanos, who, after spending years trying to bully the people of San Diego out of free money to give him a new stadium, decided, hey, I'm going to move to Los Angeles, where I'm going to play in a soccer stadium to start. Then I'm going to be the tenant of Stan Kroenke, the Rams owner, until I can figure out how to build my own stadium. So the reason why he is the shithead of the week is because, first of all, Mike and I were talking about this before we started recording. I love San Diego. I think it's a very lovely city. I think it's, obviously, if you've been there, weather's great. It's beautiful, everything about it. But there was a humorist this summer I read something about where he said that, and nothing against Colorado Springs, but since, the Air Force Academy, there's a bunch of bases around there, that San Diego is essentially Colorado Springs on the coast. So it's this kind of strange right-wing bastion within a left-wing state on the coast of the Pacific Ocean in one of the most beautiful places you can be. So if you imagine how good of a fan base they could have had in San Diego with a football team that could respect, do military respect week every week, and also maybe even try and build a winner. They almost had some bandwagon fans there for years when Daniel Tomlinson was in town, with the Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates, all of them putting up big numbers, but Spanos just kept focusing on not spending money on things and trying to get a free stadium. So now they're in Los Angeles, where they can't sell out said soccer stadium. And despite playing 3 home games in their first 4 weeks, are 0-4. And Phillip Rivers, who's usually pretty good with the press, has said they've played 4 away games. And for those of you who doubt that, or if you have any questions, I'll have Mike post the link or a video of the link on the or whatever I'm saying on the on their homepage, which shows in last week's game, which was in Los Angeles, after every Philadelphia play or play that benefited Philadelphia, the crowd went fucking nuts. So Dean Spanos, his franchise may be worth more, but his team sucks. His players hate him, and he has no fan base at all. So he's going to be my shithead of the week, even though Mr. Cameron Newton has not had a good week himself. But Spanos has more of a, I guess you could say, he's a more veteran shithead kind of guy.
Had more time to be shitty, and he just is. Awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you, Noel. Let's go to the champion of the week, which is a little bit somber, but it is the what? They're still in Oakland, right? No, where the Raiders? Where are they now?
Oakland for the next 2 or 3 years,
right?
1 or 2 years, but yeah, I see where you're going with it.
They're still in Oakland, but they are moving to Las Vegas, and as a token of their kind of goodwill towards the city, they donated $50,000 to help the people who were affected by the incident that happened in Las Vegas earlier. I make them as sort of quote unquote champion of the week. The NFL Foundation also matched that, so they're getting $100,000. Why I also consider bringing them up as the shithead of the week, Noel, is that's such a token gesture in the sense that, like, you look at the UFC because they're big in Vegas. They donated $1 million. And it's not a who's is bigger type thing, but I know that the Raiders have more money than $50,000 to contribute to something like that. And for what's going to be their hometown, I think I applaud them for doing it, because they could have done zero, they could have done nothing. So they have to be acknowledged for their generosity with $50,000. But it's also somewhat tongue in cheek, given the sense that it's the NFL's a $12 billion industry. And so they easily could have afforded that. So they are the champion of the week. So thank you, Raiders, for that. But it is kind of it's a begrudging champion of the week.
I hope they do more, because why I say a big but is a big reason that Mark Davis and his haircut chose to go to Las Vegas was the people of Las Vegas, people of Nevada, are giving him a hell of a lot of public money to build the stadium. So $50,000, not to sound mean or ungrateful or whatever, it's not even pennies on the dollar for what Davis himself is receiving as far as value for this franchise. It's fractions of a penny on the dollar. So I really hope they up that and maybe match what, not to belabor this point, but what J.J. Watt did, where he started out with a seemingly, not even inconsequential, but a seemingly smaller number and skyrocketed up. So let's say champions of the week, but let's keep it rolling, Raiders.
Yeah, that actually would have been awesome if they could have somehow made some sort of drive for that. But nevertheless, I mean, 50,000 will help a lot of people. So kudos to you, Raiders. Now let's go on to the review of week 4. It's a good week. This was a good week for football. Just coming up with everything here. Let us start with Noel. You've got Kenfield and Vanessa. Take it away.
All right. So this was kind of indicative of the week so far, of the last week, not week so far, where it just wasn't really close. But in the case of a few of us, this was a much better game than, say, my game, Brandon's game, or sadly, Mike, your game. Uh-huh. And here you got, with a couple exceptions, a very consistent performance from Vanessa's team, who totaled 148.4 points, against Kenfield's team, who was relatively inconsistent, but still managed to put up 123.9 points. And this was this kind of sad. And you're never really happy to see this, but you'll take a win when you can get it. So Kenfield, that's right, the formerly undefeated American Doomgivers, led by the indomitable Matt Kenfield, would have won this week, really, if he gotten anything out of Jason Witten, who again had a bad week, anything really out of Demarius Thomas, who again, 2 points, had a bad week, Jonathan Stewart, who somehow against one of the worst defenses in the league, believe it or not, the New England Patriots, only had 11 points. So when Kenfield got 28.5 points out of his defense, 38 points from Zeke Elliott, 30.4 points from Tom Brady, this should have been an easy win for Kenfield, but single digits will kill you when you go against a team that scores nearly 150 points. So Vanessa, I think after getting screwed royally in week 1, is starting to look like a powerhouse team here. Jameis Winston, nearly 40 points. Kareem Hunt, as you said, Mike, this was his worst week as a pro with 30 points this week. Odell Beckham Jr., who's having a bad season, still got 16 points, excuse me. Charles Clay, who you may be asking, who the hell is that? That's probably the Bills' best receiving option at tight end, 18 points. Jay Ajayi, who, I don't know, the Dolphins just seem to be, I don't know what the hell they're doing. He had 10 points. 3 points from Eric Decker, not to be super unexpected. But then her kicker, also a Buffalo player, got 15 and 17 from our beloved Broncos defense. So huge win for Vanessa, who I think has a lot to like on her team. Kenfield, I don't think this is I don't think he's falling off here. I think he's still got a good team. It's just that he had some players who did really poorly, but I don't think that will be the case going forward. So I think this is actually a matchup of two teams who should make the playoffs.
I think so. Kenfield just had a rough week. I think he's definitely primed to continue his dominance in Vanny at 2-2. Certainly can. I mean, 2-2 is great for 4 weeks. So that's great. Let's go into your game, Noel. This was tough for both of you because at least you both scored over 100 points, that's a good mark. But you barely made it over that mark, unfortunately, and it was because Big Ben. What is going on with him? I mean, his best game has been 23.6 points this week. He barely eked out 14.6. I mean, he almost eked out 15, I should say. Not a great week for him. Dalvin Cook, I think, would have gotten you more had he not gone out and been on your injured reserve because he's been averaging 25, put up 18. If he had performed as he had been, you certainly would have been a greater contender this week. Doug Baldwin, 8 points is certainly not going to be – that's not going to win you games when he's your number one wide receiver. Nor is Delaney Walker at 8 points, which is not bad for a tight end, but it's certainly on the lower end of average. Now, Fitzgerald and Chris Carson, 13 points apiece, that's okay. That's modest for a flex position. Again, a little bit on the low end of average, but that's doable if you have other players who were performing well that week, which unfortunately the best performer you had was a defense, which they did well. The Lions got 22 points. That's nothing to shake a stick at. That's pretty darn good. In fact, the Lions are the number one defense through 4 weeks. They've been averaging a total of 23.6 points, which is really good because most of the time defenses score in the teens. A great week will see them above 20, a phenomenal week above 30, and a not so hot one in the single digits. Let's contrast that with what happened with Charlie's team. Aaron Rodgers, go figure, had another great game, 30.6 points that well trounced what Ben Roethlisberger could put up. LaShawn McCoy seems to be ageless. He did great, 21 points. Jordy Nelson, teaming up with Aaron Rodgers, put up 23 points on 4 receptions for 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was a very similar line to what he had last week with 6 receptions, 52, and 2 touchdowns. So this guy's got 5 touchdowns through 4 weeks. That's a pretty good. If he can stay on that path, Jordy Nelson might be the best wide receiver of 2017. Jared Cook, 7 points. You can write that off again. That is below average for a tight end. Frank Gore, 15
points. More than he was projected, though, but I think it was like 4 points above his projection.
That is pretty good. I mean, it's so hard for tight ends. I think a good tight end should get you in the double digits. A good tight end should get you between 12 and 20 points. If you get above 20, it was a great week for them. Like, Antonio Gates when he put up multiple touchdown weeks. But anything to me below 8 signifies that that's just mundane. And even for Jared Cook, it's still mundane. But he might have scored more had Carr not gone out. But I mean that happened later on in the game, so not to be expected that Jared Cook would put up a ton. Frank Gore, 15 points. That's great. Theo Riddick, 1 point. That is not. I'm not sure why Charlie keeps playing him. Here's his point totals through 4 weeks. 14, 8, 7, and 1. So he's the 50th ranked running back. So he's not doing that well. He's got 30 points. So the Lions defense almost scored more points than he did for the entire season so far. Packers Charlie's team is basically the Packers this year, 16 points, and then Mason Crosby at 5. So it wasn't a phenomenal week for Charlie. He hasn't been able to put up a ton of points, but as long as you outscore your opponent, that's all that matters. So Charlie is tied for second place in the Pacific Conference at 2-2 with Vanessa. And unfortunately, Noel, this makes you slide down 1-3 in the Pacific Conference with Kenfield at 3-1 taking the number 1 spot there. Let's go on to the next game, the Spartans versus Got AJ Green Lantern.
So, not to say that not saying that Josh shouldn't be 4-0, but Brandon should not be 0-4.
No.
And I'm not saying he shouldn't have lost this game, but dear God, I mean, what has happened to Brandon? Like this,
I don't know.
He kind of befell like one of the pitfall I guess I had this week where Ty Montgomery went out early with possibly fractured ribs. So that's fun. But from there, Brandon has a team where, I mean, I know he's asking this, where it's kind of, what the hell? Matt Ryan, 13.8 points. He threw more interceptions than touchdowns. Okay. Off of an MVP season, that makes sense. And Ty Montgomery, as we said, went out early, 5 points. Emmanuel Sanders, I think, will just be, I had him last year for a bit, and it was the same way with Trevor Siemian at the helm. Emmanuel Sanders is boomer bust, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because he's not Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers. It's just like he's just touchdown dependent. Jimmy Graham is suffering really the way the rest of anyone who has Seahawks offensive players in fantasy is suffering from, which is a bad offensive line, one of the worst in the NFL. So he's probably also touchdown dependent. He's not listed as hurt right now, but I know he looked dinged up in that game. Marshawn Lynch, I think this is the biggest disappointment after texting with Brandon, who had 2 points last week and has just, apart from I think week 1, just not looked like he's Marshawn Lynch of old, because this is commit out of retirement. And then from there, Keenan Allen. This has to be huge, huge for Brandon. Keenan Allen finally showing something with 20 points, which ties him for second most productive player on Brandon's roster this week with his defense, the Jaguars defense / special teams, who, mind you, they actually lost somehow to the Jets. So there's that. And from there, I don't want to take anything away from Josh, because even with only 133.5 points, there's a lot to like about Josh's team. Dak Prescott, 32 points in a loss. Todd Gurley, as you said, Mike, earlier, 53 points. And I was actually watching most of that game on Sunday, and the announcers got it right, where for whatever reason, under Jeff Fisher, the Rams was decided that Todd Gurley was the second coming of Adrian Peterson. So he only ran the ball up the middle. Now they're going, he can actually catch the ball in the backfield. So he gets 7 receptions for 94 yards and a touchdown to go on top of his 121 yards rushing. So that's a recipe for success. AJ Green, not a great week if you're thinking AJ Green, but 17 points. It's up so far to start the season. Not as good as last week, from what I remember, but still good. Jordan Reed is still kind of dealing with an injury. He might be dealing with an injury the whole season. Brandon Cooks, feast or famine, 6 points. Devontae Adams, for those of you who watched the Thursday night game last week, basically got his head taken off by a very, 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 very dirty, very vicious hit by Danny Trevathan, former Bronco. And from there, defense and kicker didn't really help him out. But Josh at 4-0, first in the Atlantic, and I think there's reason to believe he can stay there because, as you alluded to earlier, Mike, there's easy ways to fix tight end and flex positions. And he's got a very strong top 3. Brandon, on the other hand, I think is kind of in the same boat I am, unfortunately, where he's going to need some big weeks, which is entirely within Brandon's realm. I don't understand this 0-4, but he's going to need some big weeks to help him out of this hole he's in right now. And Brandon, seriously, what the hell did you do? But actually, Brandon pointed this out. Mike, check out Brandon's bench.
What did he do? Let's see here.
82.4.
Oh, he almost got the Golden Bench Award. So close. So close. For those of you who are not familiar with the Golden Bench it's only been awarded one time in history. It's when your bench outscores your lineup, which should never happen. 4 players should never outscore 8, but it's happened. Eek. So at any rate, let's that sucks. I know. Brandon, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm just as scared as you are. I watch the skies for comets to come raining down. It seems like Armageddon. With Trump and you and 0-4 North Korea, you pick the headline. It's the 4 horsemen. So, okay, great. Let's go on to the game, Courtney versus Nick. I'd say game of the week. It really came down to the Monday night game. Really tremendous games by both of these teams. 157, Nick put up 150.7 for Courtney. I mean, how can you be upset with that? I understand Courtney is frustrated because she didn't win. Clearly, that's not fun. But 150 should be the silver lining to that, in the sense that you have a team that can put up 150 points. And it wasn't on anything like Todd Gurley putting up 50 points. It was just on a well-rounded, balanced team. That's who wins champions. It's not the ones. I mean, every now and again, you get a team that wins because they get ridiculous big monster weeks. In fact, I would say that I had that the year that I became champion, because in the Mile High Champion, or in the Colorado Bowl, Megatron went off, Reggie Bush went off. The only person, and not to be, it is expected, the only player on my team that didn't really perform was Rex Grossman. So there's a name from the past. Anyways, let's look at these games. Russell Wilson, 36 points. That's great. He is definitely proven from our previous podcast that he is not fantasy irrelevant. He is still a great fantasy quarterback. Leonard Fournette, besides Gurley and Kareem Hunt, I would say has been the pick of the season. She paid a good amount for him, but I think that it was still somewhat of a risky bet. So I can't say it was tremendous value there, but she's getting tremendous points out of him. He got 32 this week. Stephon Diggs had a low game for Stephon Diggs, 14 points. He's usually averaging 22. Gronk put up 12, which is low for a tight end. As we were talking about, he should be north of 20 because, well, he's Gronk. Devontae Parker got 12 points. Christian McCaffrey, 17. He hasn't been too bad this year. I thought he would be better, but he's been a very solid flex position. He's been averaging 17 points, which is very good for flex. That's exactly what you want. I hope and I pray there's not teams out there where Christian McCaffrey is the number 1 running back. That would just be disastrous. Vikings defense, great week. They only allowed Detroit to put up 14, so they got 17.5 points. And then Brandon McManus had 10 points. So great week all around. Nothing to be disappointed with Courtney, minus the win, or minus the loss. Now let's go to Nick's team. The mouth-breathing dummy, Eli Manning, had another 37, back-to-back 37-point weeks. Look at his stat lines, everyone, please. This is the definition of Eli Manning. Week 1, 11 points. Week 2, 16. Week 3, 37. Week 4, 37. You cannot rely on Eli Manning. And he even goes up against weak defenses and still play shitty, or he'll go up against a great defense and play phenomenally.
They're still 0-4.
And I know, those poor Jets are Giants. Maybe, well, that was kind of a Freudian slip, I guess. I think
they're worse than the Jets somehow.
I know. I can't believe that. The last 5 years, you wouldn't expect the Giants to be worse than the Jets, but God help them, they are. But nevertheless, this is Eli Manning, 37 points. C.J. Anderson, great game, 24 points. He's been doing well this season. He's a top 10 running back, number 9 overall, putting up, ironically, 24 points per week. So right on target there, C.J. Tyreek Hill, slow week for him, 8 points. He was really, really phenomenal last year, but I think that he is kind of proving, like Eli Manning, he is a boomer bust type player. Listen to this. These are the weekly scores: 32, 9, 21, 8. So on weeks that he underperforms, you got to have big performances like from Eli Manning to compensate for that. But on those weeks that he outperforms, he will be the one that makes up for other people. So he's still definitely worth keeping on the roster there. Travis Kelce, he might be the new Gronk. He is really, really good. He's, in my opinion, because I think the Chiefs are so good this year, he will probably be the number one tight end. That's my crazy bold prediction for the end of the year, but I really like what I've seen from him so far. 26 points. Tariq Cohen, I don't like him for no other reason than he vultures points from my guy. So fuck you, Tariq Cohen. But as for Nick, he's done tremendously well. The first week, he got 35 points, then 14, 21, and then 10 this week. So not particularly great this week or week for him this week at 10 points. But he's proven that he will probably be the Chicago Bears lead running back, maybe 3 to 5 years down the road when Jordan Howard starts to break down. So he's really good. I'd keep your eye on him for future years and watch him this year. Chris Hogan seems to still be Tom Brady's favorite targets. I put up 17 points. Amendola's back, so he might vulture a little bit of that, but Chris Hogan still seems to be the guy in New England. Texans D, 31 points. Holy cow. Wow, good week for them. They only allowed 14 points. They had 4 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and a touchdown. So really good week by the Texans, 31 points. And then Justin Tucker, 4 points. He's probably very upset by that. He's probably, 1 field goal, and that's it. Actually, he missed a field goal. He had attempted 2, made 1. God damn it, Justin. Although if he is out there, his ears are burning, and he's like, oh, thank God, somebody's talking about me in fantasy. I'm not a douche. Let's go on to the next game. Oh, before we do that, let's talk about the standings here. So Nick is rocking the number 2 position in the Atlantic. Courtney's still rocking the number 1 position in the Mountain, 3-1. Behind 2-2 for me, 1-3 for Parker, and then that ghastly 0-4 for Brandon. 1.21 JJ Watts. There's 3 2-2 players in the Atlantic Conference, chasing behind a strong 4-0 Josh, but that conference is still anyone's. I think that's going to be one to watch. That one's going to be fun to see what happens in the Atlantic Conference this year. Let's go on to the next one. This is the whoa, there's that picture. Whoa, Jesus, God, every time. Let's talk about the game though. Molly was able to pull out a second win in a row. She started off poorly, 0-2. Now she's 2-2 with her second consecutive win. Contrast that, unfortunately, Larson's on a 2-game losing streak. Was at 1-1. Now he's at 1-3. Why did that happen? Well, it wasn't a great week for both. Molly was able to put up 7, not even 7 more points than Larson this week. That came on the back of LeGarrette Blount, 34 points. That's tremendous. Best game this season for him so far in the flex spot. The rest of it came from Drew Brees, who put up 25.8. The rest of the big games, I should say, because DeMarco Murray, Julio Jones, Zach Miller, 8, 6, and 6 respectively. Not that great. Chris Johnson, I think. I don't know how I feel about him. You figure in the absence of David Johnson that something big would happen. And, because given his history, CJ2K, that you think he'd be able to go bananas on the field, but just not the case. He's only got 13 attempts for 32 yards. I mean, that is not a good ratio. He's getting about less than 2.5 yards. I think I could get 2.5 yards a carry. So 12 points, but it was still enough to get her a win. 12.5 by the Cardinals defense. They barely beat the San Francisco 49ers, which is sad. You should be able to beat Brian Hoyer any day of the week. Hell, the West High School football team should be able to beat Brian Hoyer any day of the week. Gostkowski, which I think is another focal point for her team. Normally, we just like to make fun of kickers. 15 points for Gostkowski here. 3 field goals attempted, 3 field goals made, and 1 extra point. He was nailing it from long range, which is why he's got so many points there. The fun thing to look at on their bench, they both had 2 big shots on the bench. Alvin Kamara, who is that? Got 30 points. And then Bilal Powell, never thought I'd say this, 54 points. What the hell, Lyle?
Whoa.
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was because Forte is not playing well, and he was out. So good old Blyle was able to go in there. 21 rushes. Usually when you get anything north of 10, it's a pretty decent week. North of 20, you should have a good week, and boy, did he. 21 rushes, 163 yards. So he was averaging 7.7 yards a carry. Now, I didn't see that game, so I don't know for sure. But typically when you have that sort of high yards per carry, he had a big run at some point. So he probably broke a 50-yarder or something like that, and then was getting like 5, 6, 7 yards on the other 20-plus carries or 20 carries. He also added on top of that 4 receptions, 27 yards, so 54 points. Needless to say, had he been in, he would have clearly won the game he would have been the MVP, actually, of the week. But that is fantasy football, folks. Sometimes you put in the right player, sometimes you don't. It's very difficult to tell. So, Larson, if you're listening to this, you have my sympathies, because we've all done it, and it sucks, and I know it hurts to be like, oh my God, if I just put them in. Looking at Larson's team here, Tyrod Taylor, 16 points. I think that was low. He's been playing not too bad, fairly consistent in the low 20 or kind of mid 20s, high teens, and just 16 points is not that great for any quarterback, but for Tyrod in particular. Devonta Freeman, great week, 21 points. Michael Thomas, he's turned out to be a gem, 22 points. Zach Ertz, he's another contender potentially for best tight end going into the end of the year. He had 13 points. Golden Taint, 5 points, not a great week. I said it in last week's podcast, and I'm going to say it again. I think Matt Stafford is the new Drew Brees in that he spreads the ball around a lot. And I think it's very hard to have a Detroit wide receiver that's not Megatron and rely on them consistently. I think Golden Tate's going to have a big week one time, and then name another Detroit wide receiver will have another big week another time. Javarius Allen.
Marvin Jones.
Yeah, like him, whoever that is. Javarius Allen got 10 points, not too bad. So it was a subpar week for Larson, but again, when you break 100, that's not bad. You always got to look for the silver lining. So that's it. That is Molly and Larson's game. As I said in the Atlantic Conference, there's a shootout going on. Oh God, that was a terrible metaphor. There is I'm going to cut that out. Remind me of how far are we? Okay, 9:16. Okay. There is a battle going on in the Atlantic Conference. As I mentioned before, 4-0 for Josh, and the rest have 2-2. So that's tremendous. Larson, as I kind of mentioned, also 1-3. Now, keep in mind, again, because I'm a silver lining type of guy, this is only a quarter of the season done. This is still anybody's league. Josh has a leg up, certainly, and Brandon does not. But that does not mean that either of those teams can or cannot make the winner's circle at this point. Still too early to tell. Let's go on to the last review game of the week. Oh, God, my poor team. Go on to the last review, my game versus Ben. Take it away, Noel.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this until just now, and I'm, Mike, I feel sorry for you, but I'm also surprised because, yes, I'm not certainly surprised that Simeon, who's prone to being, at his best, he's probably a game manager, so 15.2 points isn't bad. Jordan Howard, as you said, apart from having, especially on passing downs, having his touches snaked by, what's his name again? Tariq Cohen. He also just suffered from the fact that Green Bay got up super fast, super early because Mike Glennon, who is no longer the starter in Chicago, was terrible. From there, Mikey really suffered from kind of some feast or famine, but in the case of Jarvis Landry, just what the hell are they doing in Miami? Like, yes,
I don't know.
I understand it's going to take a second for Cutler to get adapted. Yeah, shrug. But, Jarvis Landry is, if nothing else, have they not had him returning punts? Because he's a fantastic punt returner. That's what I don't understand.
I haven't been watching his games, but he should. That's what I was banking on, is the fact that he typically does that. And just a nice little, Attaboy, 5 to 10 points a week.
Yeah. So that's actually, Mike, really all of your starts to me made sense. And just none of them really panned out. Colby Fleener, who had started out the year like gangbusters, came back to earth somehow in the same game when the Saints shut out the Dolphins 20-0. Melvin Gordon just could not get things started against the Philadelphia defense, which was completely hell-bent on stopping the run, which in this case might actually hurt you because since you had the Eagles defense and Phillip Rivers did not do what he did last week where he threw a bunch of picks and Ben started him this week, Phillip Rivers put up 30.4 points for Ben's team. And since he didn't turn the ball over, your defense, the Eagles, only got 6.5. So really, the best 4 players for your team were your quarterback, Jordan Howard, Jarvis Landry, and Will Lutz, none of whom got above 20 points in the week. So that's tough. Your bench wouldn't have fared much better, unfortunately. And looking at Washington's running back by committee, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if they know what they're doing. On to Ben's team, which Ben's team should be a powerhouse. He started off pretty slow this year because Le'Veon Bell was slow getting back into it, but Le'Veon Bell got 52 points last week, and it looks like the offense, he got 35 rushing attempts this week. 35 against the goddamn Baltimore Ravens. And Ben also started the Steelers defense against those same Baltimore Ravens, which scored 24 points off of 2 interceptions off of the elite Joe Flacco. They also sacked him 4 times, only allowing 9 points. From there, Ben, I think, will be up or down with Phillip Rivers because Phillip Rivers is not going to get 30 points each time. He's going to throw interceptions because he does. Mike Evans has to be a huge disappointment. I have the game on right now in the background. And for whatever reason, we all thought that Tampa Bay's offense would be great this year and hasn't done really much. Jack Doyle, 7 points for tight end, which is pretty average, but I don't think Ben thought Jack Doyle would be average. A huge question mark, though, right now for Ben is Carlos Hyde has looked great to start the season. He's really benefited, even if no one else has, from Kyle Shanahan's offense and Kyle Shanahan's coaching in San Francisco. He put up 20 points, and he's now listed as questionable, which is a very Carlos Hyde thing to do. Not making fun of Carlos Hyde. It's just unfortunate because he's such a talent, but he just can't stay healthy. And so, Ben, I like your team, but you think you got some question marks. Mike, I like your team, but they just need to goddamn perform better.
That's right. God damn it. Perform. Just God damn it. Do it. Ah! I agree. All right, let's go on to the review of the week. Before we do, let's talk about this. We're heading into the bye week tempest. So heads up, you got to know who's not playing. It's pretty obvious. It'll say on your roster, but we're going to mention it anyways. It's Atlanta, our glorious Denver Broncos, New Orleans, and Washington. Now let's go on to the preview, which is actually more of a live preview, as we talked about, because this is going on right now. We're not going to do
no projections.
We have no projections. So what we kind of have is the line still. There is the projected total that we can kind of work with, but it's more, I think it's going to be fun because we can actually comment. Like I was just looking at my own game. Molly has 3 players in, and they're doing pretty well. So not feeling super confident about this week. Let's dive into the first game. It's you and Vanessa Knoll. And I think that looking at everything here, this is going to be much more based off of our guts, people, in the sense that we are not going off of mathematics and projections, more so off of just how we feel about things. I was going to say, had we not done this, or had we done this on a Tuesday, that Jameis should probably outperform Roethlisberger because he's going against the stout, believe it or not, Jacksonville defense. But nope. Jameis has only got 15.2 points so far, and the game is almost over at two minutes left. So I would give this one to Roethlisberger, even against a tough defense. He has
Correction.
the talent.
It's actually against the New England Patriots defense, who is terrible.
Wait, what? What am I looking at?
Maybe last week? Oh, Ben Roethlisberger is playing against Jacksonville's defense. Maybe I must have misheard you.
Oh, yes. I was like, oh, no. Oh, I'm previewing the wrong thing.
My bad.
Let's look at the running back situation. We've talked about how amazing Kareem Hunt is, so I think both of us would throw our hats in for the fact that he's probably going to have another tremendous week. Joe Mixon, I don't know who that is, Noel, but he's projected to get 20 points. So
yeah,
good luck, I guess. We have ODB or OBJ. It's not old dirty bastard. It's Odell Beckham Jr. is running up against Doug Baldwin here in the wide receiver slot. I think that, given that Odell Beckham Jr. is questionable, and I don't like Eli Manning, so this is much more of an opinion than it is more based off of facts and figures. I'm going to go with Doug Baldwin. I just like Doug Baldwin. I've had him before. I think Doug Baldwin will outperform Odell Beckham Jr. Charles Clay versus Delaney Walker. I do like Charles Clay a lot. I've had him in the past, and I think he is an underrated tight end because he's a great check down guy, and he's big. So he's going to be on the field often. I think, though, I would have to go with Delaney Walker simply because Charles Clay is going against the third best Cincy defense against tight ends versus Delaney Walker going against Miami's terrible 24th ranked defense. So I think Delaney's got the edge up there. Jay Ajayi versus Lamar Miller. To your point, Noel, nothing is going on in Miami right now to get excited about. And I have that firsthand with my guys. So I think that Lamar Miller being the number 12 guy, even though he's running against a pretty tough KC defense this year, and Jay Ajayi is running against a mediocre Tennessee, I have to go Lamar Miller. I think he's definitely got more talent and more skill, and they need him more with a rookie quarterback. So I think they're going to rely on him. I think Lamar Miller's got it. Larry Fitzgerald versus Tyrell Williams. This is the first I've ever heard of Tyrell Williams. So I'm going to go with Larry Fitzgerald. The Eagles D versus the Lions. I had to pick up a quarterback. Oh, hello. Jameis Winston just scored a touchdown.
Oh.
He is now up to 21.6 points. Big Ben, that hurdle just got a little bit higher. You better watch out. Better not cry because Jameis Winston will eat all your crap. Oh, somebody has Cameron Brate, and we'll have to talk about them when we. Oh no, Molly has Cameron Brate. No, no. Oh, it's not gonna look good for me. Oh dang. Okay, let's go on to the Eagles D. I think is gonna. Carson Palmer hasn't been that great this year. Arizona's the 28th worst offense, so they should have a good week. They have had in the past the opportunity to do pick sixes and run fumbles back. So I think they're going to do well, but not. I think the Lions are going to have more fun with Carolina because Cam Newton, especially with all this controversy going on, might have his head not screwed on straight. So I think the Lions will also have a field day with them. Too close to call. And then you have kickers on your teams that will be kicking footballs. I think, Noel, this is going to be close. I'm going to put it for you this week, but not by a ton. Within a 10-point margin, I think you're going to score in the 130s. Vanny will get in the 120s. So I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to give the win to you this week. That's my projection. Now let's go on to the next one. Rednecks Delight versus the Doomgivers.
It's the America Bowl. And right now the line has Charlie favored for the upset with projecting 136.8 points to Kenfield, 126.2, which makes sense because Tom Brady, despite being against a depleted Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, has not had. Actually, looking at the stat line so far, it's not bad. It's just the one touchdown and one interception. But if he breaks that 300-yard mark, which he very well might, if they get a first down here, will give him a big bump. But that being said, it's just I actually like sorry, Charlie. I like Kenfield to keep his winning ways going because he's got Ezekiel Elliott going against Green Bay defense, which is surprise, surprise, hurt. Which also Charlie is starting that said defense, so that could have a very negative impact. Antonio Brown against Jacksonville's defense, which has been better, but it's Antonio Brown. Jason Witten can't keep putting up single digits, so I like that there. Terrence West is really the only player on Kenfield's roster that I really, 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 really don't like. Which Kenfield, do what you want with that. I'm 1-3, so yeah, I know what I'm doing. Chiefs defense against Houston's offense is an interesting one because Houston went nuts last week, but it was against the Tennessee Titans, who the hell knows? But they've also got a quarterback that can run around, so it's kind of an unknown. But I do like the Chiefs defense in that fashion. Also, Mike, because you talked about before with Tyreek Hill, they're so dependent on. I guess Tyreek Hill is so dependent on getting punt return yardage and kick return touchdowns or yardage, which I think he will do. And for Charlie's team, Aaron Rodgers against Dallas, who has a bad defense, I don't really think he's going to put up a huge number of points this week. But LaShawn McCoy is going to get fed the ball. Jordan Nelson will probably get a decent amount of points. For tight end, Charlie's kind of stuck in a weird position, as you said, Mike, where he has Eric Ebron on his bench. And Eric Ebron can have some huge games, but since Matt Stafford spreads the ball around, he'll also disappear. Jared Cook not only is new for Oakland, he's now got EJ Manuel throwing the ball. So I would imagine Charlie will take a look at that. Frank Gore is averaging just about, I think he's averaging under 2 yards a carry so far this season. So there's that. Theo Riddick, meh. Mason Crosby, meh. Packers defense, meh. So even though Charlie's got the line, I like Kenfield here this week. But I would not, as with anything, would not be surprised if I was wrong, but it's going to come down to whether or not Ezekiel Elliott goes off or if somehow the Green Bay Packers defense contains him. But I like Kenfield moving forward to 4-1 and Charlie being closer to my record at a 2-3 after this week.
Awesome. Hey, what's going on with Ezekiel Elliott's suspension? What's going on with that? Is he going to be suspended or not?
Well, they keep trying to get an appeal of the appeal to reinstate the suspension, but it just somehow keeps getting pushed back. So I honestly don't know. It seems like the best chance for him to be possibly suspended might be after the season. So okay. Kenfield may have played us all for suckers, but at the same time, this is the NFL led by Roger Goodell, who is an idiot. So maybe in the middle of the week, Elliott gets suspended for a year. I don't know. This is all dumb. Also, Trevathan, if you all saw that hit last week, got his suspension reduced to 1 game. So I don't understand this anymore. I don't understand this to begin with. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that Kenfield has nothing to worry about for the foreseeable future as far as fantasy goes with Elliott, because I don't think the courts really care to fast track this hearing situation at all.
I agree. Guess we'll just have to keep our eye on that. Let's go for the next one, Josh versus Courtney. These are the two leaders of their divisions, the Atlantic and the Mountain, respectively. It's already started. Josh is off to a 13-point lead thanks to Brandon Cooks in the flex 1 position here. Let's go down by quarterbacks first. He's got Dak. She's got Russell Wilson. Think that I'm going to give it to Russell Wilson. I think that he's going to outperform this week, and I think that he's going against an easier defense that will obviously make it easier to outperform. But I like Russell. I like Russell to have a good week this week. Todd Gurley versus Leonard Fournette. Yikes. These guys are both phenomenal. Todd Gurley, wow. I think I'll have to go with Gurley still. Seattle's going to have to figure out, which is kind of a bad thing actually for Josh here. If Todd Gurley goes off and is able to put up a lot of yards and points, then Russell Wilson's going to have to throw to keep up. So it actually it could be kind of a double-edged sword here. It won't be as much. It won't certainly be point for point because you get more from your running backs, especially for touchdowns, than you do for quarterbacks as a part of a balancing act that we have in our scoring system. So, but nevertheless, I think that Todd Gurley will outperform Leonard Fournette. I think Fournette will still do well, but I think Todd Gurley will do better. AJ Green versus Stephon Diggs. Stephon is actually the number one wide receiver so far, and in a kind of bland wide receiver type year. He's the number one wide receiver, putting up 22 points per game. That's not a lot for elite wide receivers. If you're the number one, you expect him to be in the the 30s or possibly 40s, but he's not. 22 points. So I think Stephon will take the day over AJ because he's going against a weaker Chicago defense, and Chicago looks like shit. And Buffalo has the chance to be very good and very stout on defense here. Benjamin Watson in the tight end position for Josh versus Rob Gronkowski. Well, this will be easy unless Benjamin Watson doesn't do shit. Gronk was a game-time decision, not playing, so she's going to get a big fat goose egg from Gronk. Benjamin Watson going up against a fairly bad Oakland defense against tight ends will probably have a pretty decent game. Brandon Cooks right now has got 13 points with a minute left to go in Thursday Night Football. The Patriots just kicked another field goal. They're up 19-14. It looks like this one's in the bag for now, unless famous Jameis, don't throw to Cameron Brate, whatever you do, unless he comes back. So I think between Brandon Cooks and Courtney's launching it against Christian McCaffrey, I think Christian McCaffrey here. Christian McCaffrey's going up against a pretty bad Detroit run defense. I think he'll be able to put up more points than Brandon Cooks. Devonta Adams versus Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson had a tremendous week, a good week last week. I can't say tremendous. 21 points is certainly, it's tremendous for Duke Johnson, but not a bad week. He is going against the 28th ranked Jets defense. The thing about Browns running backs, as I can tell from personal experience with Isaiah Crowell, sometimes they knock your socks off. Most of the time, you want to rip your hair out watching them because they're so bad. So I think I'm going to have to give it to Devonta Adams here. Panthers D against the Vikings D. Vikings D, I think, is pretty easy to pick here. They're going against Chicago, and Chicago has not been able to get anything going on the ground with Mike Glennon at the helm. Although they're supposed to start Mitchell Trubisky on Friday or on Monday. They could start him on Friday, but he's not going to do any good because the game's on Monday. So I think that that'll be interesting to watch. Lord only knows what's going to happen with that. He could have an awesome game as a rookie, or he could, suck completely. So anyways, we'll see. And then he's got Robbie Gould kicking for him, and she's got Ryan Suckup. So they'll probably put up some points. This one's tough. Courtney's projected 116. Josh is projected 109. I think I'm going to go with Courtney here because I think there's more opportunity for upside with Russell Wilson. Clearly, he's going to put up a ton of points with Todd Gurley. AJ Green will probably do okay. I think the defenses are going to determine this game because I think the Vikings can run all over Chicago here because with a rookie quarterback making his debut on primetime Monday Night Football, I could be completely wrong, and he just goes off like Houston did and put up 50-plus points, but I'm more expecting him to have kind of the rookie nerves and kind of not perform as well as God, even Mike Glennon, which is such a low bar to cross. But nevertheless, I think this one will be won by Courtney, but I think that it's going to be a low point total week. I think both of them will struggle to get above 120. Let's go to J.J. Watt versus the Rams. Noel, take care of this one, the next one, and I'll do the last game.
All right. So this game right now is projected to go in favor of the lion raping a football player while the lion has horns on his head. Anywho, this one, I don't know, though, because Nick is making me look like a dumbass, which I am, but he is very smart because I didn't think Hogan would do shit this season after, he's not doing crap so far in the preseason. But Chris Hogan, has 21 points so far for Nick, which I'm fairly certain was above the projection. But at the same time, Larson himself has 21 points from Doug Martin so far, and 17, which might be the season high so far, with the, as I say this, the Buccaneers driving. So that's encouraging. But I think here there's a lot of just, you don't know what to expect. I think looking at what I should expect from Nick's team, I like him more. Stafford, I think, will have a decent game against Carolina. Tariq Cohen will get some touches against a tough Minnesota defense. As you said, Mike, with a new quarterback who Chicago fans are still calling Mitch Trubinsky, even though his last name is Trubisky. Tyreek Cohen has been hit or miss so far this season, but that's the nature of the player he is. He's so freaking fast that he can get you for 50 points one week and get you, 5, 6, 7, 8 points another week. Travis Kelce, Mike, you're totally right. I think right now, especially with Gronk being in and out, is probably the best tight end in the league. And even so, you're going to be like, oh, he'll give you 8 points this week, which is a lot from a tight end, but he'll get you 20-something more than that. Randall Cobb, when healthy this season, has been good, so I like that. Really the only, because kickers, who cares? I'm not sure that I like the Texans defense / special teams against KC, because KC's offense has been on fire so far to start the year. So we'll see. Looks like the Tampa Bay game is apparently over. And to Larson's team, Deshaun Watson, after a huge week last week, is still a rookie, so who knows? Zach Ertz, who Mike and I both don't like, who knows? Golden Taint, again, who knows? Bilal Powell, I did not know how that many points last week, so maybe going against a bad Cleveland defense could do well this week. And then I like his defense against Buffalo's defense, but no, honestly, I like Nick's team going forward this week. I actually like Nick's team overall, and not to say I don't like Larson's team, I just don't like his picture. It weirds me out. And now, unless you want to add anything, Mike, onto your matchup against
please go ahead.
Against your little sister here, Molly. Who is that?
Who just sent me a text message, by the way, and if I may read it. What a week to pick up Brait and Amendola. I felt so about my team this year, so it's on. May the best team win. And I was typing back to her, God damn it, because Amendola, back from an injury, 20 points, and then Cameron Brait at 17. Oh, my God. Yeah, so I'm not off to a great start. I'm down by 52 points.
You sure are, and now the line is skewed in Molly's favor at projected total of 29.9 points. Sorry, versus Mike, you're projected 124.1 points, and this could be a tough start to overcome because this is Amendola, who she started wide receiver, versus Cameron Brait, not versus, but she also got Cameron Brait, tight end of 17 points, and Gostkowski, her kicker, got 15 points. So that's, 52 points, including one flex and a kicker. But from there, it's kind of, you kind of see Tyrod Taylor against Cincinnati. It's going to be a tough matchup. DeMarco Murray, we'll see. I would imagine he'll get plenty of touches, but Miami's defense isn't bad. It's just their offense that's bad. But LeGarrette Blount, after doing essentially nothing to start the year, 34 points last week. So with Darren Sproles being done, it may be they're finding ways to get the ball in LeGarrette Blount's hands, which might not be fun for you, Mike. But Chris Johnson, I think, is kind of not no longer the lead back, even with David Johnson out. Cardinals defense has been, they're supposed to be good, supposed to be great even, but they haven't been good. They've been less than average. So I think there's a spot for you to get in there. From there, Carson Palmer might be a little rough. Jordan Howard, he'll get his touches, so I think, Mike, you'll be happy with at least somewhere between 15 to 25 points. Jarvis Landry, God damn it, do something. Evan Ingram looks like he's on the same page with your mouth-breathing friend there. Melvin Gordon should get more touches again and should do something against the Giants defense, which, despite being very well funded, is not very good. Crowell against the bad New York Jets, Giants, should do better. Zerline, who I thought about picking up this week, Mike, but I've been burned by him in the past, but they call him Greg the Leg. At least I've been told that by Rams fans. He went off last week in the Bills defense against Cincinnati. I like that a lot. So, Mike, I hate to say it, but I think Molly's got the edge this week.
Yep.
But I think, unfortunately for both of you, this will be a lower scoring affair than what the projection says. So I think that gives you a better shot, but the early scores so far are certainly in her favor, just like how I see now that Vanessa has a 27.2 point favor against me so far, so should be fun.
Woohoo! Did you see our benches? It's like a bye-week bonanza down there.
I did see that. I knew that's why you weren't starting. That's why you were starting Carson Palmer. Like,
yeah,
that's fun.
Oh yeah, of all the quarterbacks are available, it's like, yay! I can pick him or this guy who has one leg. I guess I'll go with Carson. Did you also notice I'm stashing a kicker on my bench here because normally that's the stupidest thing to do ever, but I am so impressed by Will Lutz this year. I wanted to keep him because they've just
done it.
And I'm stashing a tight end. I'm going against my own advice here, never to do that because they're so. I mean, I don't know. So don't listen to my advice. It's kind of stupid. I'm just stashing my bye week players, two of which. Here's the funny thing: two of which are a kicker and tight end, two of which are running backs for the same team. My God, what is going on my bench right now? Let's go to the last game. Brandon and Ben. This is going to be one of those definitive weeks for Brandon. Although I said it's still anybody's week or anybody's season still. When you get to 5 losses, that's pretty much the cap. You can't lose much more than that and expect to make the playoffs because typically you see 9-3, 8-4, and 7-5 teams making the playoffs. So he has to start winning. Brandon, has to start winning now and end this 4-game losing streak, or else he will start to just have to wave goodbye to the trophy this year and just look to next year. But let's see if that's going to be possible this week. In the quarterback slot, Philip Rivers, that is, not King Philip of Spain. Philip Rivers going up against Carson Wentz. I really like Carson Wentz. He stole him out from under me. Well, I guess stole is not a proper term because he is in last place. So he gets pick of the waiver wire because Carson's doing very well this year. He's actually the number 6 quarterback. I really like him. I like the way that he's playing. I didn't feel that way last year, but this year I do. He's going up against a somewhat difficult, in the middle of the road Arizona defense, so we'll see. And then Phillips going against a very, very poor Giants defense. So I think this is going to be tough, but I'm going to throw my hat in for Carson Wentz. I think he'll do a little bit better. Le'Veon Bell versus Amir Abdullah. I mean, Le'Veon Bell versus anybody, pretty much Le'Veon Bell. The only people that are outscoring him are Kareem Hunt, which we talked about, and Todd Gurley, which we've also talked about. So I'm going to give my vote here for Le'Veon Bell. Mike Evans versus DeAndre Hopkins. These are 2 household names. In fact, I think they appear in the same – no, I thought they were in the same commercial. But these 2 are great. DeAndre Hopkins finally coming back. He's the number 3 wide receiver. As we're talking about, though, this isn't so far a season for wide receivers because he's only averaging 18.5 points. That's really not that great. That's about the same as Amir Abdullah, who's not a fantastic running back. To put that in perspective, DeAndre Hopkins, number 3 wide receiver at 18.5 average. Amir Abdullah, 18th running back with 17.5 average. So just it's a good season for running backs this year, not so much for wide receivers. Back to the topic du jour, Mike Evans going against a weak New England defense I thought would have done a lot better, but the game's over. He put up a whopping 9 points, and fucking Jameis Winston should have thrown to him instead of Cameron Brate because that's his job. Wide receiver, you have one job to do. That's to catch footballs, Mike. So that's what you should have done, but unfortunately threw to Cameron instead, who should have been blocking because that's sometimes the job of tight ends, but that's just me ranting. So I think DeAndre, 9 points, should be able to cross that hurdle fairly easily. Jack Doyle in the tight end slot versus Jimmy Graham, which Jimmy Graham I like a lot, but has not looked like the Jimmy Graham of the New Orleans Saints. So I think, unfortunately, it's weird to say, I'm going to go with Jack Doyle and Jacoby Brissett because although they're going against San Francisco's number 1 defense against tight ends, I have a feeling that Jack Doyle is going to outperform. Carlos Hyde, well, he's also questionable, so I may be eating those words. So we'll see if he even plays. But Carlos Hyde versus Keenan Allen in flex 1 spot. Keenan, you know what's funny? This is one of those weird coincidences. Both of them are the 6th best at their position. Carlos Hyde is 6th best at running back. Keenan Allen is 6th best at wide receiver. Now, let's expand upon the idea that this is not a wide receiver season. Carlos Hyde is averaging 25.5 points. He's scored in total 102. Keenan Allen, in contrast, 16.5. 16.5 to 25.5. So we're getting an entire 9-point difference there, 66 points total. So that's kind of an interesting little dynamic there that will make me believe that Carlos Hyde will be able to beat out Keenan Allen. Mike Gillislee versus Latavius Murray. I think that given that he put up 10 and Latavius, they're not going to want to use EJ Manuel a whole lot. Oh, no, he doesn't even play for them anymore. What am I talking about? He plays for Minnesota now, not the Oakland Raiders. So forget what I just said about EJ Manuel, although I still hold that you should not pay attention to EJ Manuel. I think that Mike Gillislee has already played and put up 10 points, so I think that Latavius Murray should have a decent week against Chicago's pretty good actually defense against the run at number 6, but we'll see. I think Latavius Murray can beat 10 points, so I'm gonna go with Latavius Murray. Steelers versus Jags. Steelers going against the. This is hard to believe. Jacksonville is the 4th best offense this year. I'm sorry, what? Or at least pertaining to fantasy. So they're able to put up points or yards, so they're killing their fantasy opponents. So Jag, funny thing, he's playing the Jag. Ben has the Steelers defense playing the Jacksonville offense. Converse with Brandon. He has the Jaguars defense going against Pittsburgh offense, which are number 11. I like the Jags. The Jags look good. I had them for a while for the first couple of weeks. I like them a lot. I think that the Jags should do very well against Pittsburgh here. So I actually think it's going to go to the Jags. Ben currently doesn't have a kicker in. I'm sure he'll fill one in, but at present he doesn't, and he's still projected to win. Brandon has Dan Bailey, who I really like. I think he's a great kicker. He hasn't been doing very well this year as a symptom of the Dallas, I almost said Stars, different sport. Dallas Cowboys not playing too well this year, so I think he'll do fine, but he won't have a tremendous game. Although I started this with a long exposition on the importance of winning games pertaining to the winner's circle and that 5 wins is pretty much the max you can have, I unfortunately think this is going to be Ben's week. I think that Ben is going to win with a mediocre score like in the 110, 120 range, but Brandon, his team has not been able to get any traction. I don't think he's going to win this week. So I'm going to toss my hat in for Ben this week, and that wraps up our preview. And let's go to the poll, and we are out of here. Given that we are 1 quarter through the season, I'm just curious how you're feeling about your season so far. So your options are great, pretty good, not hot, and fuck my life. So let's go ahead and vote if you want or not, or whatever you want. This is America, land of the free. Do what you want. Noel, is there anything else you want to add for this podcast?
No, I think it's about. Oh, actually, I should say, maybe for the poll, add fake news for an option.
You got it. So our options, great, pretty good, not hot, FML, and fake news. Go ahead and vote, folks. Go ahead and vote. All right, well, that wraps up the Week 4 review, Week 5 preview podcast. Thank you so much for listening. It means a lot to us that you do, and I hope you get something out of it. This is the Commissioner signing off, and Noel, please send us out.
Go Broncos!